Good morning and welcome to K2's Road to Excellence and our partners Adagio by SoftTrack. Well, it's December and the countdown to Christmas is on, and Nancy's busy working away, handling things on our end. This is Alan Salmon, and this is the first of two webinars in December. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Marilyn Benninger, of course, is backing me up today, your go-to person for technical issues and for questions. Your microphones are muted for obvious reasons. Welcome to take notes. However, within 10 days of today, Marilyn will be sending you a package that will contain the recording of this webinar, my extensive teaching notes, all of the files that I used today, and the answers to all the questions that any of you ask, plus, of course, your CPD certificates. Questions get asked in the chat window. At the end of today's session, Marilyn will send the questions to Andrew and myself. We will answer them, and you will get the answers to the questions that are asked in the package. If you're new to these webinars, 4 times today, Marilyn is going to be stopping us and putting up a polling question. That's a multiple choice question. You don't have to get it right, but you do have to answer one of them and click on submit. And if you answer 3 of the 4 questions today, you'll get a CPD certificate for 1 verifiable hour. If you don't, it'll be 1 non-verifiable. Now, in today's session, I'm moving away from Excel for this session and moving on to a series of Word tips. In no way am I going to try to train you on Word, but there's some really cool features in Word that you should all be aware of. So before we get started, Marilyn, it's time for the first poll.
Thank you for that, Alan. Good morning or good afternoon, folks, wherever you are in the world today. The polling question turns your screen blue, and we're asking you, when you're working with Microsoft Word, do you know how to do any of the following? And you can select more than one: styles, building blocks and quick parts, the navigation pane, working with tables, or perhaps none of the above, in which case you're in the right room for some good learning today. We keep our polls open until we see 90% participation, and we're just right there. Thank you for your quick responses. I'll be counting you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and I'm going to close the poll and share the results with you, Alan.
Oh, I like the response to the first one. So let's see how we can improve your productivity with a bunch of Word tips, starting right here. And for some of you, this will be a review because as far as I'm concerned, one of the main features and tips in Excel is using to learn styles. So what do we mean by that? Well, I need to go to the home ribbon. And back in the good old days, I'd have a title here. So I would center it. I would change the type to Arial Black, and then I'd probably bump it up. And then I'd go down here and I'd do the same thing. This time I'll leave it like that. And then I'm going to double click on the Format Painter and go down here and do that. And that. Hit the Escape key and go back up top. Does it look pretty? Absolutely. Is it too much work? Absolutely. So I'm going to do a really quick undo here. There we go. Now I've highlighted this, and in the Home tab, there's this big wide panel for styles, and there's a whole bunch of them here, and we can add some. So I'm going to make this a heading 1. Notice that it changed, and what did it change to? Calibra Light 18. So now let's make this a heading 2. And again, let's do a Format Painter down here. and down here. And now the magic comes in, and that happens when we go up here and click right here on More and go down here to Apply Styles. And there's going to be a window open up down here. I'm going to move it. Whoops, can I move it? Yep, I'm going to move it up there. So the style name is, of course, heading 2, but I'm going to modify it. And in this window, I'm going to change blue to black. I'm going to center it. I'm going to change the typeface to Arial Black, and we'll bring it down to 12. When I click on OK, I want you to focus right there and right there. Do you understand what happened? It automatically applied my changes to every item that's marked heading 2. The same thing here. This is always called normal, and it's the text we normally use when we type. Notice normal? Let's modify it. And the only thing I'm going to do is change this to Times New Roman. Watch the text change. Now, if that had been a 100-page document, it would have rippled down and to do that. So from my perspective, that's a great time saver. Now, can I create a style of my own? Absolutely. Just go to create a style, and I'm going to go and modify it. And in Marilyn's honor, we're going to call it Marilyn. And what do I want to do? Well, I want to do that. And yeah, Times New Roman, let's bump it up to 12. And we click on OK. Want to change it back to normal? Bingo. So in every document without fail, I will apply styles. Now here's where the payback starts to come in when we're using styles. So let's go to this file here, and notice it's an 8-page document. The material doesn't matter, but I would like to add a table of contents. Well, that's a piece of cake. I go to References, I go to Table of Contents, and I've got a bunch of styles here. So let's do Automatic Table 2. And presto, notice what I've got. So how does it do this magic? Well, guess what? The first or outside table of contents is always a heading 1 style. The next indent is heading 2, heading 3. So if we click on here, notice that it is a hyperlink. So let's go down here to here. Instantly goes down, and let's just highlight here and go back to home, and notice it's a heading 2. Great time saver. Here's the next one in the list, and it's the little known tip called navigation pane. So I'm going to go up to the view menu. Well, this document is 39 pages, by the way. So I'm going to go up to the view document, and I'm going to click on navigation pane. And we're going to see something jump out on the left-hand side. Well, that's interesting. That's like a table of contents that's always there. So that's pretty cool, but it gets even better. Notice that I have small office networking there. Well, I want to move it after OneDrive for Business. And the normal way that you would do that, of course, would be to highlight this area, do a cut, go to the next spot where you want it, and do a paste. That is way too much work. I'm merely going to click here, and it's done the magic for me. Next. Oh, by the way, how does it get the navigation pane? Guess what? we're back to styles. So that is a heading 1. Next, the issue of when more than one person has to work on a file. So let's pretend that Marilyn created this file. It's only 2 pages, and she pulled out a very old copy of it and sent it to me. But brilliantly, she turned on track changes. And do you notice the red 9 here? That's something that I added. And if your eyesight is really good, there is a red dash right in the middle of the 6. That's something that I deleted. And as we go down in the left-hand margin, you will find some changes. Now you can see the delete here. I've deleted this. And Andrew Bates probably remembers when Microsoft decided to compete with Intuit and produced a small business accounting software, which lasted for about 2 years. So I'm deleting that. Now I need to deal with all the changes. So I'm going to go to Review. Notice the Track Changes is on. And I want to see all the markups. And I want to see a reviewing pane. There we go. Let's show the markups. There we go. So now I'm going to start here, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go to Accept. And I got a bunch of choices. For the first 2, I'm going to accept and move to the next. Watch the red 9 in 2019 change. Watch what happens when I click on and the same thing. And I could do this, but because it's Marilyn, and I know she's a great editor, I'm going to go down here and accept all changes and stop tracking. And then I'm going to save the document. So I find that useful in a number of areas. And this is the one item where I think only 4% of you indicated that you have worked with building blocks. So down here, I want to be able to repeat this non-disclosure in the footer of various Word documents. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to the Insert and I'm going to go way over here to there. Explore Quick Parts. And for starters, save selection to the Quick Parts gallery. And I'm going to call it Ray. And I'm going to click on OK. And then I'm going to open up a new file. I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go to Quick Parts. And because I just did a quick part for this, it's already there. When I click on the icon, all I've got to do is that. But if I had a number of these, let me go down here a little bit. I could go to the building block organizer, and Word has a bunch of built-in building blocks. I hope you can see that. That's a pre-done document title. If we go down to the bottom, we got a bunch of watermarks. So what happened to my Ray? Well, let's do this. And let's go down to the R's. There he is. So notice over here, I go Insert, and it's there. So for me, I have a library of building blocks. So anything that I want to use more than once, I'll take the time to go in and create a building block. And then to reuse it, I just got to go in and find it. Now, you saw that you could add a watermark via a building block, but typically I won't do that. If I want to do a watermark, I'm going to go to Design, and I'm going to go over here to Watermark. And when I click on the down arrow, I'm going to have a choice. Confidential. Do not copy, and so on. Now, one of the challenges with watermarks is I want to get rid of it. And strangely enough, even though that appears as an object in the background, it is really not. It is really not a text object. It is actually in the footer. So if I go down here and open up the footer, now watch what happens. I've selected it and I've deleted it. So that's a booby trap that caught me for a while. So to add a footer, I go to Design and add a watermark. To delete it, I go to the footer, then go back up and select the text for the watermark and delete it. And yes, it's awkward, and yes, it's backwards. Now, starting about Word 2013, we have the ability to go to the Insert menu and do screenshots. So here's how it works. There's all the windows that I've been working on. So if we go to a new document like this and go Insert Screenshot, there's all of the windows that I've had open. Well, we go here and there's a screenshot. That's a great feature if I want to do a full screen. What happens if I want to do just part of a screen? Well, up at the top here, I have the header for Alan's Excel Solutions group, and I want that in this blank Word document down here. So I select the Word document, I go up here to Insert, I go to Screenshot, only have two windows there, I go down to Screen Clipping, and I select this, and then look at the Word document. And that's useful. However, that's a very basic screen capture program. I'm now going to show you a tool called Snagit that I use on a regular basis. Its cost is $49.95 US, and it has far more features than the clip in Word. So let's do this again. In my taskbar down here, can you see the S? That's Snagit. I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to go to Start Capture. And then I'm going to go up here, and there's my arrows. Now, so far, that's exactly the same as I did with Snip. However, we've got a bunch of additional features. I'm going to click on the camera. And then I may want to do, what do I want to do? I want to do an arrow. So I click on the arrow, drag it into the canvas, and notice that I have a plus sign here. Well, let's do this. And there's all kinds of other add-ins. I can do a text box, I can do a colored box, and so on. And when I'm done, I'm going to click on Copy All, close this window, open up my blank Word window, and do a Control V, and there it is. So if you don't do a lot of screen captures, then the Word snippet will work for you. If you want to do advanced work, I highly recommend Snagit. On the ribbon, I have Dictate. I'd love to know whether any of you have played with this. I have very briefly. So let's see how it works. Good morning. New line. This is an example of the dictation abilities in Word 2016 and 2019. New paragraph. You will note it gets it pretty right, but not quite right, so I'll have to do a lot of editing. I do a lot of dictation, but I don't do it in Word. So I'm going to turn this off, delete this, and then I'm going to show you a product called Dragon 15. And I've turned it on now. Scratch that. Good morning, period. This is an example of Cap Dragon 15, period. It is a tool that I use every day for dictating reports and for lengthy emails, period. New paragraph. You will notice that it is far more accurate, open paren, because I've done a little bit of training, close paren, than the Word document. Scratch that. Then the Cap Word document, period. New line. For me, the investment of approximately $200 has paid for itself many times over, period. I'm turning it off on another screen, and then I'll have to do a little bit of cleanup work, but and where are we going to go next? I've got time for one more. Now, this is a document. It's 8 pages. And I want to turn this document, would you believe, into a PowerPoint presentation. Now, to do that, I've got to go up here and click on Customize the Quick Access Toolbar. And you'll notice that I found an icon. It's under All Commands called Send to Microsoft PowerPoint. Okay. So I merely go here. It's going to open up PowerPoint. And it's created 9 slides. There's my title slide. There's that slide, that slide, that slide, and so on. Now, how does it do it? Guess what? We're back to styles. So heading 1 is a title on a slide and the key for a new slide, heading 2, and so on. So that, folks, is my word magic for today. It's time for Marilyn to put up my last poll, please.
Thank you, Alan. That sound you might be hearing, folks, is me once again banging my head against my desk for all the things I wish I had known when I was creating PowerPoint. Thank you, Alan. This is a question, folks, about array formulas. And if you've ever worked with them, do you know what Control-Shift-Enter would do in a formula? Have you ever used arrays to extract data from a range? Have you ever used an array constant? Or if you're like me, my answer would be none of the above. I look forward to learning what these are all about. I suspect it's a future session you're giving, Alan. We're at 90% already, folks. Thanks for your responses. I'm going to count you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm closing the poll and sharing those results.
So we got some wizards on here when I look at the response to the first 2 questions. Well, folks, that's the topic for our last session for this year, which happens a week from Thursday. So it's now time to do the handoff to my good friend, Andrew Bates.
That was great, Alan.
We see your screen, Andrew. You have the comm.
Excellent. And Marilyn, I'll just let you know that on my control panel, I don't actually have any of the polling questions. So I'm going to turn the con back to you if you want to do a poll. I always feel when you're counting down the poll questions that I should be finishing a set of jumping jacks. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about Adagio and Adagio Cloud and a use for Adagio that in the seminars that I've given before haven't really highlighted, and it has to do with actually using Adagio for client write-up. Now, we are aware that many people who do accounting and bookkeeping for small businesses and organizations use QuickBooks and Sage 50 as the write-up tool that they're using. Partly, I think it's because they believe that if the organization was doing its own bookkeeping, it would be using those particular commercial products in the operation of the business. And there's no question that that's a method of using Sage 50 and QuickBooks, but there are some downsides to electing to use those tools. Probably the first is that they're not actually designed for doing client write-up, they're designed to run a small business. And one of the things that you need to be able to do when you're doing client write-up is to make arbitrary adjustments to transactions, to the general ledger, to produce the financial statements for the organization. And both of the products, entry-level products, make it difficult to do journal entries to any arbitrary account in your chart of accounts. The other issue is that when you set up your general ledger, when you create a general ledger account, you must tell the application where you want this account to appear on the financial statements for the organization. And that means that it's difficult to produce custom financial statements for an operational view or a board or a finance organization. And I think I'd like to start, Marilyn, with a question with the first polling question, which is about what you're using to produce the financial statements within the organization. So I'll let you talk about the poll, Marilyn, because I can't see it on my screen.
No trouble, Andrew. The poll is up. We're asking our attendees, what are you using to produce financials for your small and medium-sized business clients? Sage 50, QuickBooks, something else? Or there may be folks on the call that the question is not applicable to them today. Nice, easy question. Lots of responses. I'm already at 90%. Get your arms ready for the jumping jacks. It's the counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to close that poll. And let me just share those results. 14% with Sage 50, 27% with QuickBooks, 32% are in the other category, and we have 39% not applicable to them today.
Awesome. I would presume that the something else would be caseware, which is another popular product for doing client write-up. So thanks for doing that. I think one of the questions or things that has struck us just in using Adagio in-house in Softrac's own business is that often you don't notice that there's a problem with a number or an entry until you get to the financial statements. And so when you're looking at a statement and you're staring at it and you're saying, well, that number cannot possibly be right, then you have to go on the great trek to find out where that transaction entry has been made. So I'll just talk a little bit about how Adagio Financial Reporter and the General Ledger helps here. The Financial Reporter in Adagio is a full spreadsheet with all of the computational horsepower of Excel and most of its formatting, so you can produce completely presentation quality financial statements without leaving your accounting module. Because it's drawing the numbers directly out of the GL, you can create report sets, complete sets of financial statements for distribution. And you can do any math that's necessary, internal rate of return, return on investment calculations, interest, depreciation, all that kind of stuff can actually be done on the financial statements. And if you were using the financial statements to prepare budgets for a not-for-profit, building next year's budgets on this year's figures, you can write those budget figures back into the GL directly from the financial statement. Most of you who have been on the series with the K2 Path to Excellence series have seen this slide before. Adagio is a multi-user, multi-currency, modular accounting system with specialized features for not-for-profits and wholesale distribution and order entry. It's designed for organizations managing a budget of between 2 and 50 million with a full-time accounting department. So a full-time accounting department, someone who knows the difference between a debit and a credit and who doesn't need a picture of a check in order to write a check. Lots of modules. We've got the same R&D crew that we've had for 25 years. Can't really turn off a programmer. So they keep producing modules. We are large, over 30% of our clients are in the not-for-profit space. First Nations are not-for-profits because they are subject to external audit, and they have a need for very specific operational reports. So within the space, if you're having to do client write-up, it works better because you can do easy departmental reporting. Departments do not have to exist for all accounts, so you can have a department in your chart that can only be posted to for 1 or 2 accounts, which reduces the number of errors. You can open up next year's budgets without opening up next year for data entry, so that you can start doing budget preparation prior to the end of your fiscal year. There's a full drill down within the financial reporter. So if you're subject to audit or you're doing an audit, you can easily see what the underlying transactions are. And for those of you who are using Caseware, you can pull the general ledger, all of its transactions for the prior 2 years directly into Caseware just by saying file import from an accounting system, Adagio, and it'll go and pull in all the numbers. You don't have to get everything into Excel first and then pull it in. So one of the differences with Adagio from the entry-level products are that when you set up a general ledger account, all you need to tell Adagio is whether it's a balance sheet, income statement, or retained earnings account. Those are the only 3 things that you need to tell Adagio. So the financial statement layout is completely independent of the chart of accounts. Supports both a 12 or 13 period fiscal year. So for those of you who have clients who are in retail and are dealing with a 13 period fiscal calendar, we support fiscal calendars that are not monthly based. No matter whether you choose a 12 or 13 period fiscal year, there is still a special year-end adjustment period so that you can post year-end adjustments without distorting the operational nature of your financial, of the comparative financial statements. You can mark accounts inactive, which prevents people from posting to them inadvertently. You can close periods. Once you've done the financial statements for a period, you can close those periods so that people can't post to those. You'll get an error transaction. You can say that the control accounts can only be posted to from AR so that people can't inadvertently post to one of the control accounts, throwing it out of balance with the subledger. So there's lots of error checking available. And one of the fundamental differences in transaction entry in Adagio is that the fiscal period that the transaction is posted to does not have to come from the date of the transaction. So you can post to a fiscal period outside the range of the dates of the date of the transaction. Again, the fiscal period and year is independent of the date of the transaction. We support budgets. And once the budgets have been approved, you can lock them so that people can't inadvertently change them. So once you've prepared your budgets and you've got buy-in from the board of directors or your funding agencies or whomever, you can lock the budgets. But there's another set of budget buckets that are available so that you can keep track of the original budget for the accounts and have a secondary budget where you're making adjustments when reality sets in during the year. When you create a new fiscal year, you can copy the previous year's budgets into the new fiscal year, or you can zero them all out for those of you that do zero-based budgeting. And you can either key in the budget figures, or you can import them from Excel or a CSV, or as I mentioned earlier, you can drive budget numbers directly off a financial statement. You have unlimited budgets, of course. So budgets are what a QuickBooks user would refer to as classes. So where QuickBooks has classes, we have departments. You can have as many as you want. I think the largest GL that I've seen recently had 185 departments in it, and I've actually seen a GL with 450 departments. It was an instant teller organization, an ATM, white box ATM that had cash dispensing machines in all around Alberta, and they set up every machine as a department, so they could figure out the profitability of each machine. When you're dealing with departments, you can close each department to a different retained earnings account, and when you close, you can close an individual department without closing your entire GL. So you have a lot of flexibility of when you get to the year end of managing the particular year. And of course, you can mark departments inactive to prevent people from inadvertently posting to them. There's a soft year end within the GL. There's still a specific year-end process that closes the year and creates the new year, and accounting year-end adjustments can be posted to the prior year, any prior year actually, but of course normally just to the 1 year back, and they can be posted to a year-end adjustment period. When you open a new year, you can still get a full set of financial statements while you're waiting for the straggler transactions into your current year. Let's talk a little bit about the financial reporter. Oh, I said that I would talk about reports. Of course, there are a full set of reports within Adagio, specifically like an open payables and aged open payables and an open receivables, and all the reports, the important major reports, can be dropped into Excel as a table. So the trial balance you can do a trial balance just at the account level, or you can do a separate account department trial balance with page breaks on change of account. The GL detailed listing, listing out the transactions within the general ledger can span fiscal years. So if you're listing out a fixed asset account and you want to see the activity over a 10-year period, you can do that. The detailed listing can be printed in summary or detailed form, and the Adagio General Ledger supports units being posted with the financial transactions so that you can do revenue and expense per patient day in a nursing home, or per liter of gasoline pumped in a gas station, or per square foot retail, or revenue per available room in a hotel hospitality setting. So as well as posting dollar values into the GL, you can post units with the transactions and then do math on those units as part of your financial statements. So I'll just show you briefly when we talk about the general ledger, and this is just a basic view of the chart of accounts with the account balance as of a particular period, and both the budget and forecast numbers displayed. I think to show you what the financial reporter is like, I'll just pull up a financial statement, and this is a financial statement with 2 periods, the current period and year-to-date figures. I'm showing it consolidated for the entire organization, but I can turn off the consolidation and display it for a particular single department, or range of departments, or all departments that end in 0, or just an arbitrary list of departments like Bob's departments, and they'll all be summed and totaled on the form. I'll make that consolidated again. Adding columns to a financial statement is as simple as duplicating an existing column and then changing the specification code at the top of the column. So here I've added the budget, the total budget column on the right, or maybe I would like this to be budget year to date, so I can compare the year to date numbers with the actuals. So adding columns, very straightforward. Of course, you have to learn what the codes are, but that comes to accounting departments pretty quickly. The other interesting thing in the financial reporter is when you're looking at a particular number on the financial statement, you can double click and see all the accounts and departments that were summed to get you to a particular value, the value that was displayed on the statement. And then you can drill down to an account department and see what has been posted throughout the fiscal year. And then you can double click on a particular period and see the transactions that have been posted into the GL for that period. And you'll notice that there's a view button here, and I can click on the view button and see an image of the underlying transaction that a document that generated the transaction in the GL. Now, this particular invoice would have been attached, would have been scanned or attached in some way when the accounts payable person was entering the AP transactions. You can attach documents either by dragging and dropping off an email, or dragging and dropping out of an Explorer window. So you can have Explorer open containing all of the scanned images. I'm sorry if you can hear the beeping in the background. There's a truck outside my window that's decided to back and forth. So these documents can be attached when AP transactions are being entered on the accounts receivable side, on the sales side of the organization. Every time Adagio generates a transaction, it will automatically create a PDF and attach that PDF for you. And the transactions that are attached in accounts payable will flow down into the GL. So the person who's looking at the transactions in the financial reporter can see them without having to hop over on the other side. Now, you'll notice here that there's a button with the Excel 2003 logo on it. You can take these transactions and you can drop them into Excel just by clicking this button. And now here's the transactions. Here's the transactions in Excel, and you'll notice that the transactions are dropped into Excel as a table. Whenever you see that Excel Direct button, we drop all of the transactions, all of the information that we drop into Excel drops in as a table, so that you can filter and sort and do all those kind of good things with table, create pivot charts and stuff like that. But one of the things I want to bring to your attention is over here on the right, on the left-hand side, the doc link field is a hyperlink, and Excel will launch your current PDF viewer to show you the document that was attached to that transaction. So now we're completely out of the accounting system, but the links into the filing cabinet are maintained if you drop the transactions into Excel. And if we look at the Excel document, here's the Excel document, and that Excel Direct export has been told to go and pull all the associated documents out of the Adagio filing cabinet and put them in a file folder, so it's completely self-contained. The spreadsheet and the links to the document are completely self-contained. So you could just zip up this file folder, and you would be able to send the Excel spreadsheet and all the associated source documents to someone, an external auditor perhaps, and say, here is our year's transactions and all of the underlying documents out of our file storage. So here's the document details, and this is stored in a way that in our filing system for documents. So these are documents that came from the GL, and they're numbered. This is 2007 for Department 250, and this is December 2007. And so it's pulled all of the documents and named them so that someone can just wander around. They won't typically, they'll click on the hyperlinks either within Adagio or within Excel in order to look at the documents, but they can also just look at them wandering around Adagio. So let's see, close this, and I'll close Excel. And I'll close the drill down. You can also just see all of the transactions that get you to that 13,000 number by asking for the transaction detail. And Adagio will go and pick up all the transactions across all the accounts, all the departments that were summed together to get to that number, and all the associated documents, so that you can see there's that $13,792 figure that was displayed on the financial statement. So from an audit perspective, or a where did this number come from perspective, this gives the person who's working in the financial statements the ability to just say, where did that number come from, without having to go to a filing cabinet or file folder or anything like that. They can just see the source transactions. So Alan alluded to my age, and I remember the time when whether you should have a color monitor in the accounting department was a debate about whether the monitor should display the accounting numbers in white, amber, or green. And no one could understand why you would need color in an accounting department. But we are long past those days. And one of the things back in those days was that accounting software tended to be installed on premise. In fact, it was all installed on premise. There was no other way to run software in a personal computer environment unless you were part of a service bureau. Well, the wheel keeps going around, and now individuals are interested in moving to the cloud for deployment. And I think that one of the reasons for that is that the technology around maintaining your own local area network is getting more and more complex. It really is rocket science that all of this stuff works together, and I'm sure that you've all had occurrences where unexplained things happen, and the IT guy, even your really good IT guy, doesn't really have a good explanation for why something has mysteriously stopped working. So keeping a network healthy, protected from outside threats, and up to date with all of the operating system patches and firewalls and all of that kind of necessity that goes on today is really pushing people to the cloud, partly because individuals who are interested in that kind of technology tend to want to work in environments where that's a full-time day-to-day task. And also, if you're maintaining a server for hundreds of companies, it's more cost effective than just doing it for one company after another. So Adagio is available not just on-premise deployed, but can also be deployed in the cloud. And in the cloud deployment, you can have as many. This is now Adagio in the cloud. I'll launch the GL just to show you that it's identical to the general ledger that we were seeing before. Oh, it's a new version. The financial reporter has all of the features that I showed you before. We've actually had an Adagio site move from on-premise to cloud on their own without any support from their consultant, and without having to learn a completely new set of software. It's the same software that you're running on-premise in cloud. But in cloud, you can have multiple company data sets, and you can choose which users have which access to different companies. So let me just come back to my PowerPoint. There we are. So you can, we've talked about Adagio a lot for running the accounting of a particular organization, but if you wanted to use Adagio for your own clients, you can deploy it through cloud, and that means that all of your clients' data is within cloud, and Softrack takes responsibility for running data integrity checks and backing up the data on a nightly basis, so that you know that your data is being kept and managed properly without you having to make sure that that's being done. You get the ability to electronically distribute all of the reports that are generated. They're all generated as PDFs. They're easy to automatically email to people at the end of the month. You still have the direct import to Caseware with the data. You can make a copy of the data just off the backup menu of the Adagio module. So the program includes, Adagio Accountant program includes all of the software that, well, the general ledger is the only software that I've seen, but of course that's the financial reporter and Adagio payables with electronic funds transfer, and an admin and a general user, and the ability to do accounting for 5 separate companies. And it's under $100 a month. So it's easy to show value to your clients, partly because you'll be doing less work transcribing numbers into Excel and more work doing actual analysis of the financial statements. You get access to our tech support department for asking questions. You get a referral fee should you ever refer someone to Adagio, that someone moves to their own implementation of Adagio. And we have regular training both on premise and at an annual conference in May that we offer discounts for. So there is a last question that I'll ask Marilyn to post. Take it away, Marilyn.
Thank you, Andrew. We're happy to hear that you're alive and well with all of that noise in the background.
I'm sorry.
Isn't live TV wonderful?
Yeah.
So folks, this is the 4th of 4 questions for today. If you've answered 3 or 4, you will receive a verified PD credit. Would your offering your clients read access only to reports that you produce for them be valuable to both you and your client? Pretty straightforward. Yes, no, maybe. And there might be some on the call that is not applicable today. We're right at 90%. Thank you, folks. Nice, easy questions. Have nice, easy responses. I'm going to count you down from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to close the poll and sharing the results there. 25% are yes, 2% are no, 22% are maybe, not quite sure, and 52% of the folks on the call today not applicable for them. Thanks for your responses.
Okay, well, that wraps my portion of the presentation. I'll turn the con back to you, Marilyn, and thanks for everyone for showing up today.
We want to say thank you for attending today. We do have another webinar next Thursday. We'd ask you to check that out. And those of you who have answered your polling questions 3 or 4 will receive a verified CPD credit within 10 days. Everyone else will also receive the link to the recording and the teaching files. We hope that you had a great time. Thanks for being with us today. And that's a wrap. Bye for now.